All right, it's 12:05, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Deirdre Patterson. I work in the City of Tacoma's Community and Economic Development Department in Business Services. So I work a lot with small business owners and entrepreneurs to help connect to resources that we have available both at the city and out in the community. So today we have Carissa St Laurent who's coming to us. She's a Grow with Google speaker. So we're really happy to have her. So if you guys could give her a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Deirdre. Thank you all. Whoop, whoop. Yeah, it's good to be with you. I'm excited to talk about data. Who's excited to talk about data? Oh, yeah. I know it's not the most exciting subject. I know that it can be a little bit, it's technical and it's dry. It's not the fun side of marketing. However, if you are not measuring, you are not marketing. Okay, can you all say that? If you are not measuring, you are not marketing. So marketing, which sometimes isn't fun either for some people, but it typically is thought of as the communications you send out, the social media posts or the emails or writing fun copy for your website or creating a cool flyer. Some of the creative stuff, the impact that you have with marketing when you push material out is exciting and a little bit more sexy than looking at what happened after you sent something out. But the beauty of today's marketing world is that we have these digital tools that are measuring what's happening every step of the way. The data is being collected all the time. So that's really what we're going to talk about today, is how that data can actually help your business grow. I'm Carissa St Laurent. I'm a speaker for Grow with Google. I'm also an independent professional speaker and trainer. I do speaker training as well as training on marketing. I teach for Portland State University, and I'm in a number of roles that puts me in front of professionals, executives, small business owners, and entrepreneurs to help them grow in a variety of capacities. This is how you can connect to me if you wish to do any type of social posting today. You can tag me, because I'd love to see what you have to say, but also use the hashtag #GrowWithGoogle. Grow with Google will then allow me to see all the things that are coming up from people that come to the workshops that I offer, and Google gets to see it too, because I'm just one of a small team of trainers that travels around North America teaching these workshops and getting in front of business owners, nonprofit executives, and leaders to help bridge the digital divide, to help hopefully provide some understanding around the digital tools that are available for you, but are also then foisted at you sometimes, like, oh yeah, you gotta do this, you gotta do Google Analytics, or you gotta tweet, or you gotta do email marketing. Marketing is now in your hands most often, right? Whereas 10, 20 years before, you would hire agencies, you would hire professionals to do that because there were not the tools available for us lay people. I actually ended up starting a marketing agency after running a small business because I saw the need to help other small businesses and nonprofits understand the world of marketing, to think like a marketer, but also then to understand how to use the tools and the technology that were coming up at the time. After running that firm, I ended up going and working for Constant Contact. Is anyone familiar with that company? So I worked as a director of regional marketing or regional development for Constant Contact, which is a marketing software company. So I was in the world and immersed in digital marketing and helping, again, small businesses, nonprofits, non-marketers, non-technologists really understand how to use this technology to their advantage. I've now been a speaker for Grow with Google for the last 2 years, doing the same thing, helping people to understand what this digital marketing can help you do, but also how to do some of it, and then when to kind of wave the red flag and say, you know what, I need some help. I need to turn to some professionals. So I'm going to educate you, and hopefully from this, it'll be a launching point for you to either go deeper diving. Maybe some of you after this are going to go get Google Analytics certified. Maybe some of you are going to go, that's nice information, Carissa. I'm going to hire somebody to do that because that's, not something I want to spend my time doing. But I want to give you all the information so you know which direction to take from here. I was talking to these folks with the nonprofit organization. What's it called again? Central Latino, and they're here to learn about Google Analytics and data for their nonprofit organization, but they've not yet explored it at all. Some of you might be in a different boat. Maybe some of you have already used Google Analytics, you've already used insights within Facebook, you've already explored data, and you want to just know how to use it better. But whatever place you're in, I hope that today you leave actually with more questions than you do with answers. Now, you're going to get a lot of answers, I promise you, but you're also going to leave with more questions of where to dig further, where to get more help, and where to potentially get more services and resources. The slides can be made available to you. Will, is your office going to send the slides to the audience? Great, so don't feel free that you have to write down every single thing on the slides. Write down your ideas. Write down the things, the sparks of inspiration that you get today. And certainly write down the things that you want to investigate more. Like I shared some type of word or a concept that you don't know what the heck she's talking about, but she's moved on. Write that down so that you can either ask a question about it or go and research that yourself. So the thing about data is that there's a ton of it, right? There is no shortage of data. It's being collected on all of us when we use digital technology. That data is then allowing the companies that use the data to formulate better connections and relationships with us, so that when you see an ad, it's more appropriate for you. It's not for something that you would never ever think of using. It's like, oh yeah, actually, I would love to buy a shirt that looks like that. And that's in my price point, and ooh, maybe it's something that you actually have already looked at before, and then it's showing up for you. When it comes to data being used on our behalf, it's to personalize our experience in a world that is massive, right? We've got this massive amount of information and information being exchanged, and when it comes to what's being shared by us, companies are curating our experience for us to hopefully allow us to have a better, more personalized experience. So you, as a company, as an entrepreneur, as a nonprofit organization, you can use that data to your advantage as well to better create a relationship that helps the person that you're communicating with, by giving them more specific information, touching base with the people who really do want to hear from you, and not worrying so much about the folks that just have never opened an email or have never gone to your website, or when they got to your website, they just bounced immediately. So we want to make sure we're curating the experience for the people that are connecting with us digitally as well. So there's no shortage of the data, but we need to figure out how we're going to use it. Right? We need to figure out what answers we're going to look for within it. And that's what's going to shape today's discussion. In order for data to be useful for us, we have to pull out insights from it. Insights need to then be novel, so it has to be some type of new insight that we're gaining from this data. It has to be credible information, right? It can't be bot generated. It has to be, coming from real people and their interactions with us. It also needs to be actionable. Right? It's not useful for us to get a bunch of data points or information that we can't do anything about. So these three elements are important aspects to the insights that we're going to pull from data. So I want you to meet Tracy and Danny. Tracy and Danny are a real, live, small business. They're a mother and daughter team. They own a company called Wicked Smart Cupcakes. So Wicked Smart Cupcakes, where do you think that may have generated from? Wicked Smart, yes! We got some Wicked Smart people in the room. They're a company based in Massachusetts. They started this business because of a dream and just the way that they wanted to live. They wanted to work for themselves. They also were really great cake makers. They ended up going to a course, and that course taught them some more advanced baking techniques and cake making techniques. So from and after this course, they decided, we have the skills, we have some business acumen, let's do it. They opened up their business, and within a couple of years, had a really steady regional business. They were doing well, they were staying afloat. But they ran into a business problem that actually turned into an incredible opportunity for them. Their business problem was that everybody wanted their cupcakes, and people that were outside of their region wanted to order their cupcakes. But they didn't use preservatives. They used all natural ingredients. They didn't have anything that would sustain their cupcakes for, shipping to Arizona, for them to be fresh and for them to be, healthy and viable for a distance like that, let alone anywhere else, West Coast, around the world. So they had an opportunity at that point, and that opportunity could have been, they could have done one of two things. One could be, well, we're just going to stay regional. Problem solved. Let's just keep our business regional. We don't have to worry about that problem. But they chose the other road, and the other road was harder, but they decided, you know what? We want to ship internationally. We want to become a much bigger business. We want to serve people with our delicious cupcakes wherever they're ordering from. How can we do it? So they put their brains together and they came up with this new innovation called a cupcake in a jar. And they created this recipe, they tested it out with their regional folks, and people loved it. And they also thought it was a cool, novel concept. They're like, wow, okay, that's really interesting. So they made a cupcake in a mason jar, and then those mason jars got sealed, and then they could send those wherever. It became such a hot product that it started to outsell their other cakes and cupcakes. It then landed them on Shark Tank. Everyone know Shark Tank? Yes, so they landed them on this show, and they were seen in front of 10 million viewers with their company, with their concept. Now, they didn't end up getting a deal, but they got a ton of publicity, and they got a ton of viewership, and they got so many hits to their website. So through this whole process, Tracy and Danny learned a lot about data, because they were now in the midst of a growth business, and in the midst of using all the tools and technology that they could use, and they wanted to and dig in and learn how to use this all to their best advantage. They came to this because their website crashed multiple times. Anytime the Shark Tank show aired, their website would crash. Anytime they did a radio interview, because then, they became local celebrities. So anytime they did anything like that, website crashed, like, oh, we gotta figure this out. We have to figure out how to learn about our traffic patterns to our site. That's really what got them interested in data. So we're gonna follow Tracy and Danny, some of the questions they've asked, some of the things that they've experienced, because they are a very typical small business. Now, not everybody and not all of you are going to end up on Shark Tank, but they're a very typical business dream, small team, running things as tightly as possible. Some of the decisions that we make as small businesses and even nonprofit organizations, just smaller organizations in general, even bigger companies make this start here sometimes, is we make decisions based on our gut instinct, right? We know that people are gonna love this recipe because we love it. We made it, we love it, it tastes good, and you know what, red velvet's really popular right now, so we know everybody's gonna love it, let's just put it on the menu. So that could be one of the gut instincts that Tracy and Danny made. They also made a few other gut instincts or decisions based on gut instincts. The other one that was really interesting is that they guessed what their demographic was. So they said, we think that it's the 35 to 44-year-old market that's going to convert the most, meaning buy our product after visiting our website the most. And they made that assumption based on their gut instinct because of who they are, the way they were marketing, the product that they sold. So it is fine to start with gut instincts. It's fine to make some decisions even based on gut instincts. But then we want to get smart and we want to measure against those gut instincts and see whether or not we were right, to see whether or not it's true, to see what the data is saying. So using data means that we are looking at not only the data, and the data are the raw numbers. So the data are, 1,500 website visitors. Cool, that's data. Analytics then are looking at patterns and trends in the data. So if we're thinking of, okay, we had 1,500 new website visits, great. If you're looking at this analytically or through an analytics lens, you would say, 1,500 website visitors came from this specific ad. Great. Now we see the trend coming from, we have 1,500 visitors. They're coming from a specific ad. That means our digital ads are maybe outperforming our social media posts, right? We can start to compare and contrast the different things that we're doing. Insights then are what you take, it's the actionable value from the pattern and trend that you see. So for this particular example, you have 1,500 new site visits, and those 1,500 site visits, the majority of them came from this digital ad versus other sources. And an insight from that could be pulled is that out of those visitors, the ones that came from mobile devices converted at a higher rate. So we're digging deeper into actual raw numbers. We don't just want to know that there were 1,500 site visitors. We want to know where they came from, what they did, how it performed, or how that information compares to other data points and information. So we need to look at and pull out information from the data. And that's what analytics software does. It looks at patterns and trends, but you have to create the insights. Create the insights of, well, what does this mean? What does this data mean to us? If we know that more people are coming from, or there's a higher rate of conversion from mobile devices, then what would that maybe tell you to do? Target mobile. Create more mobile-friendly ads. Make sure that your website is mobile responsive. All the things, right, that would affect and impact knowing that more people are coming from a mobile device to your website from these ads. So we're going to talk specifically about how to frame this through looking at goal outlines, looking at the questions you're asking of the data, and then of course looking at the reporting that you use to make sense of all of this. And that's through Google Analytics for this particular conversation. But when it comes to marketing and measurement in general, there's analytics built into everything, pretty much, right? You have a Facebook page, there's insights built into your Facebook page so that you can see which posts are performing the best, which one got the most clicks, which one got the most comments. You can compare, where the audience that's most looking at your posts is coming from and where they are. So all digital marketing technology either has analytics built right into it, like Facebook Insights, or it's a third-party tool like Google Analytics that you tie to what you're doing. Google Analytics is something that you add to and tie to your website. That makes it third-party. Just like adding something like TweetDeck to Twitter is a separate software that you connect to the software that you're using if it doesn't provide you that information. So there's no shortage of data, right? No shortage of data collection. You just have to pick the right tools that work best for you depending on which digital channels you're spending time in. The website, most important digital channel, right? Does everyone agree with that? Your website is the hub of all of your marketing. The idea with any other marketing channel of communication is essentially distribution of content and information to drive people back to the website. You put out a digital ad to drive people to a website. You do a social post, drive people back to the website. You email to your subscriber list, and there's links and clicks in there to drive people back to the website. Ideally, we want people to go back to the website so that we can finish the loop, close the loop of that funnel wherever they are along the customer journey. So, like I said, we're going to talk about Google Analytics today as our lens or as our case study when it comes to data and measurement. But think about this in the same way as you would if you were talking about your Facebook Insights or your Instagram Insights and all of the other social media and digital marketing data that you're collecting. So let's talk first about goals. When it comes to setting goals for looking at data, those goals have to be SMART goals. SMART stands for specific. So your goal needs to be specific, meaning that if I want to measure my number of site visitors and increase, hopefully, right, you're talking about increasing social media or site visits, then by how much? Right, so that's where you get into that specificity, not just, oh, I want to have more site visitors. Great, but by how much? That's where we start to get specific. Goals need to be measurable. So we need to be able to measure them. Thankfully, because we're using digital tools and technology, it's all measurable and pretty easy to do. A SMART goal also needs to be attainable. So we can't say when we're a startup and nobody knows about us that we want to, increase our revenue by 500% this quarter, right? I mean, things have to be attainable in order for that to be a SMART goal. The R in SMART stands for relevant. So it needs to be relevant to your business, current business state, with what your current business goals are. And then the T stands for time sensitive. So a goal needs to be within a time range. We don't do our marketing you are doing marketing from the moment before you open your business to when you close it. So it's ongoing, it never stops. But each marketing campaign, each activity has a time range. We're not just doing something indefinitely. We're doing something with a time range in order for us to be able to measure against it. So through this digital ad, for example, we want to have an increase of 25% increase of website visits with an increase of 2% conversion from visits to purchase, right? So we're adding specificity, and we want to do that within Q1, time sensitivity, right? And then we have all those goals set. What happens at the end of Q1? We're going to measure it, right? We're going to see, did we get 25% new site visits? Did we get a 2% increase in conversions? What else did we see in the data and in the information with what people did? Because you're looking at things probably even more in depth than just those particular goals. And it's not just at the end of a campaign or the end of a marketing activity, it's all throughout. You can look at this stuff anytime you want to. So then we can also make some shifts and pivots along the way. Maybe an ad is not performing well, or an email that you sent out, no one opened it, or you had a really low open rate. Well, you look at that data before you get to that end of the marketing campaign. Say, well, what can we do here? Well, let's resend the email. Let's use a different subject line and see if that gets a better open rate. Great action to take on that information. So we're using the data throughout the process, but absolutely measuring things at the end of that, whatever time range you set for the campaign. So Tracy and Danny, they had a goal. They wanted to actually decrease something. They wanted to decrease their shopping rates abandonment. So abandonment is when you put something in the shopping cart and then you don't buy it. How many of you have done that? All the time, right? Especially holidays are here. You're looking for stuff for somebody else, and then all of a sudden you see all these things you want, and then you put them in the shopping cart, and then you're like, I have to be a good human. I can't buy this stuff for me. Not now. Got to get my kids something. So you leave that cart, you leave those things. That abandonment rate is very real for businesses. Tracy and Danny had a shopping cart abandonment rate over 60%, so their goal, which was very reasonable, was to decrease it to under 60%. Now, I'm not exactly sure what their actual specificity was, but they wanted it to be under 60%. So that was their goal that they set out to do. So we're going to talk about the kind of questions then that they need to ask, and the questions that you then need to ask of the data that's being collected. And this is really step 2 of understanding and using data for your advantage are the questions. So there are 4 different, essentially, categories of questions. And these categories of questions fall along the customer journey. I want to explain the customer journey for anybody in the room who doesn't really know what that is. The customer journey is what your customer, client, or member, or donor would go on with you in first becoming aware of your brand. That's the first stage of a customer journey. It's like, oh, boop, I know about Central Latino now. I know about Central Latino. I know about them. I know what they do because I asked. So I'm aware now of their brand. I've begun the customer journey. Now, I might not be their customer or client, so that it might end there. But if I am within their target market, then I might continue on this customer journey of finding out more about them. Their job as marketers is to influence me along the customer journey. That's all of your jobs if you are in the marketing seat at your company, business, whatever it is that you do. And I'm assuming you are, because that's why you're here. You have some impact of your marketing. So you need to think about the customer journey and influencing that along the way. We influence brand awareness, me finding out about them, by placing ads, by doing social media, and then someone seeing that, a post from you, or seeing that their friend donated to you, or seeing that someone bought a product, because the social network is all connected. You might also do that through billboard ads or other types of advertising to get your brand out there. So that brand awareness is the first step. So that's the first category of questions. How do we reach our target customers? How do they find out who we are? So those first set of questions are designed around that. The second set of questions are moving along in this next stage of the customer journey, which is the consideration phase, right? Just because I know about them doesn't mean that I'm gonna just donate all my money to them or volunteer or become a client. I'm gonna find out more, I'm gonna do my research, I'm gonna look at all sorts of data. I'm gonna look at their website, I'm going to potentially read customer reviews, I'm gonna wait and just sit on it for a while, and then maybe I'm gonna see some information from them. Maybe I'm gonna sign up for an email list, or like their Facebook page and see what they have to post about it. This whole phase of your organization or you as a business staying in touch is to influence them at that consideration phase. So how do we influence there? We need to build up interest and desire in what you do versus what the other people that do what you do, right? Because you're most likely not the only organization that offers whatever it is you offer. When it comes to us doing great marketing, we have to influence people through building up that interest and desire, and that all comes through building relationships, building connections with our target customer. And those connections don't come by pushing our product on them, right? How do relationships come about? Organically, yep. How else? How do we build good ones? Common interests, absolutely. Listening, yes. I want to be in a relationship with this guy, right? Because he listens to me. As a business, you cannot just be broadcasting out, we're so great, we're awesome, buy from us, we're the best. People don't want to hear that. They're skeptical, and they also do not just want to be told. They want to learn that you're the best. So we learn that you're the best because you're listening to us. We also learn because maybe you're providing expert advice, resources, information to us that helps us in our life. And that information may not be directly about you and the profession that you're in or the services that you offer or the products that you sell. It might be just stuff that's interesting and informational and inspiring to your target market. So before we even go deeper into discussing the customer journey and the questions that you're asking of your data, you need to go back a few steps and completely understand your target market. Who are they? What makes them tick? What are their values, their interests, let alone all the basic demographics? So yes, understanding the demographics, it's important. That's the basics. But then beyond that, it's what are their interests, their values, their lifestyle state, what stage are they at within their life cycle? What drives them to make decisions? Because we make purchase decisions emotionally, we don't make them rationally. So we need to tap into the emotions of our target customers so that when we put out marketing, we know that marketing is going to influence them in some way because it speaks to them. They feel the message. They feel the connection. They want to then build a relationship with you even more so. So this stage of consideration where they're like, oh, okay, maybe I could do business with them, or Maybe I'll hire them, or maybe I'll buy that product, maybe not. You are influencing them, building up interest and desire, and you have to ask these questions of the data. Are we engaging? So these engaged set of questions are we engaging with the people that come to our website? Are we engaging with the folks in the right way when they subscribe to our email list and they get emails from us? Is our social media content engaging? And engaging means all the things we talked about when it comes to building relationships, right? It shows that we're listening and that we care. And we're giving information, not just telling them how awesome we are. We are sharing stuff with them that helps them and engages them in conversations and discussions with us. So all of that are part of this stage of influence and this stage of the customer journey. Then we get to the exciting part, right? We get to the part where someone buys from us. Yay, they bought something. Great. How do we find out in that stage? Certainly we're influencing that too. How many of you have gone to a website, you're ready to buy? You got the money, you got your credit card, you are ready, you already picked out what you want, and then you go to buy it, and the buying process is hell. You're like, I can't figure, right? Have you been in that situation before? And have you then left? You're out of there, right? You're just like, I don't, this is crazy. Why is it so hard to give you my money? So when it comes to the purchase phase, too, we also need to make that very easy and simple for people to accomplish. We need to make it fun and enjoyable for them, because they may have just made this decision based on their gut, based on emotions, to buy something that is going to cost them a lot of money. They're choosing this versus something else, right? Okay, I'm gonna buy this because I know this is gonna be great for me, whether it's a service or a product. However, that means I'm not buying something else, right? So it's a big deal to make decisions like this. I'm not talking about a pack of gum. I'm talking about something that is more substantial. But even for some people, buying a food product could be more substantial, and a decision like that could be very big. So that decision is big. We want to make people feel amazing that they made the decision to buy from you, to donate to you, to become your member. That purchase phase is such an important element of the customer journey. You want to make people feel like, yeah, you made the right decision. We're going to be best friends. Can't wait for you to join us. Can't wait for you to get more information from us. And you start to pepper them with information as soon as they get into that phase. We don't just go, got your money, bye, and just let them be, right? We don't just end there. So this phase of the customer journey, we need to ask the questions of, first, are we making it easy for them to convert? Is it easy for them to buy? Go through those stages. And then is it easy, and this brings us to this final stage of the customer journey, is it easy for them to sustain their relationship with us? The sustaining part of the relationship is where your brand is building loyalty with your customers. And that loyalty piece is so important because you've most likely paid in some way through marketing for their purchase. So you paid for them to make that purchase through your marketing and your advertising and all of the effort you put into getting them to buy in the first place. Great, they bought. Now we need to make sure that they remain a loyal customer. They are a loyal customer to you, and then they refer you to other people. Word of mouth is so natural for us, right? We all talk about the things that we like. We talk about the things we don't like even more. So we spread this word of mouth very naturally, but we can also do things to make sure that that word of mouth is being propagated and it's being used in the right way, and that we're giving people the ability to spread the word about us. We also want them to stick around. We want to upsell to them, cross-sell to them. We want to keep them around and increase what we call the average customer lifetime value. That average customer lifetime value is how much you essentially earn from a single customer on average. So all companies should, at some point, calculate what that is, based on it's based on a lot of things, and we won't get into that right now, but it's something that all companies are trying to do. So we're sustaining the loyalty of a client, a customer, and we need to ask the right questions there too. Does our digital presence create that loyalty? Does it help people stay in touch with us and refer us to others? So let's dive a little bit deeper into each of these categories. The reach questions, this beginning stage of are we reaching people? Can they reach us? We might ask questions like, what are people searching for in general? Understanding your target audience means that you know what they're searching for. They may not be typing into Google your company name, your brand name, but you want them to be able to find you and for your web pages to come up because you use the search terms and the search phrases that they use to look for the things that you do and sell. This is where keywords and keyword phrases come into play for your website and for your digital content. You want to figure out and get into the minds of your target customer. What are they searching for? What questions do they have? What words do they use? It's not going to be jargon. It's not going to be, industry terms that you might use to describe what it is you do. Right? It's going to be layman's terms. So keyword research is really important at this stage. We're going to have time for questions after, if you can hold that. Then think about things like, this is just a few sample types of questions. There's a lot of different types of questions, but just to give you an idea of the types of questions within this section of reach. It could be also, who is the audience? Who are they? What makes them tick? And where are they coming from? It could be things like, how are they finding you online? Are they coming because they did a direct search within Google and actually typed in your brand name? Or are they coming to your website because of a social post or because of some other link that they then got to your website through? So understanding all of that and how you reached them or they reached you are really important. That next category of questions of engagement is around understanding whether or not your content is really reaching the hearts and minds of your target customer. So some example types of questions in this category are, what do people do once they find you? Great, they got to your website, then what? Did they watch the video that you had linked to from that page that you designed specifically to help to build up a better picture of what it is you are and sell? If they didn't, then they're not engaging with you. If they watched it, great, that's telling you something. You engaged them, you drove them there, and now they're entering a little deeper into a relationship with you. You might also ask, where do they engage with you? And are you there? If you know that a lot of your target customers are not on social media and they're more reliant on their email inbox, then maybe part of your strategy is not doing as much tweeting and going into email and creating much more substantial content that you send out that way. Or maybe you know what, my target audience is engaging with us. We've got a ton of engagement on Facebook. Our posts get, hundreds of likes and we get tons of people commenting and sharing. Great. Knowing that, looking at that data means you're going to spend more time where things are working, spend less time where things aren't working, or at least change the strategy where things aren't working. And then how do people interact with you online? Understanding these types of questions or asking this of the data will tell you whether or not you're actually building up the interest and desire that you need to at this phase. The next phase of the customer journey and these next set of questions are around this conversion piece, because we want to convert, right? We don't just want to share lots of great information and have a lot of people liking our posts and hearting our Instagram posts. We want them to actually buy from us eventually, right? So figuring out Is this process happening, and is this a smooth transition and transaction for our customers? So you might ask questions like, which channels are driving the most conversion? Great, you know that most conversions happening from people that visit your website from a mobile device, like the example earlier. That means we're gonna increase our mobile marketing, make sure that everything is mobile friendly, make sure our site is mobile responsive, all that good stuff. Think about your calls to action. Which calls to action are driving the most conversions? Use more of those, less of the ones that aren't. And when it comes to call to action, a call to action is where your copywriting skills need to come into play. Now, if you plan to do any of your own marketing, and these folks do marketing for your nonprofit organization, right? And some of you might be just a Jack or Jane of all trades because you're a small business owner and you do everything. If you do your marketing, you need to study copywriting. Copywriting is how you convince and compel somebody to do the thing you're asking them to do. You write it in a way that convinces them to, yes, I'm gonna do that. And that takes a lot of skill, and it's a mix of some things that are more scientifically proven, like the words that just drive us to take action. And then there's an art to it too, because you need to know your target audience. What are the things that I'm gonna say to them that are really gonna strike a chord in their hearts and minds? Copywriting cannot be overlooked because you are writing copy everywhere. On your website, in your emails, in your social posts, in your ads, everywhere. Marketing is copywriting driven, right? And then we have to have the art design and all the things there if you're gonna use images or do video as well. But copywriting is so important, and it's majorly important when it comes to call to action. Because a call to action is where you're actually asking someone, okay, we gave you all these tips, or we gave you this funny meme and this information, but now we want you to do this. How do we get them to do this if we don't write it in a convincing and compelling way? Not very easily, right? So study copywriting. That's just a little side tip that I want to make sure everybody is very aware of. So figuring out then which calls to action are driving the most conversion are important because they're either written in a specific way or you used a specific type of writing convention in those calls to action that's really working and resonating with your audience. Learn that. Do more of that, less of the stuff that's not working. Another example of a question is here, which channels have higher ROI or return on investment? So that you can pour more gasoline on the fire, put more money towards your channels that have a higher return on investment. The last category of questions, the sustained category of questions, some examples are, do people continue to engage with you, and where? If they're not engaged, if you just like have one transaction and then they're gone, then it's important to think about, well, if they're not engaging with us, why? Well, maybe it's because you haven't put anything out there for them to engage with. Maybe you're choosing the wrong channels or the wrong type of content or not even doing it at all. Think about your responses and your response level. Are you responding to customers or clients or members quickly and with friendliness and with answers? And are you providing awesome customer support and a great customer experience overall? Other things could be, do you give people a reason to return? And that reason could be to buy another product, right? How many of you bought products and then immediately in your inbox is an email to buy more things, right? I bought an iPad recently and it was like, I got another email. It was like the same day, I think, of like, buy all these accessories for your iPad. Some of them I'm like, yeah, actually I need that accessory. And others are just like, oh, that's nice, I don't need it, but cool, thanks for sending that. So companies are always doing this, right? And you need to follow suit. We need to give people other reasons to engage with us, either by upselling and cross-selling opportunities or by referral opportunities or just giving them more information. Maybe you're just gonna give people instructions on how to use the thing they just bought from you. That iPad that I bought, I also got, at one of the emails was a personal consultant session. You could book up to a half an hour with an Apple consultant to just walk you through all the features of the new iPad. So I could actually talk with a real person instead of fiddling around with it and figuring it out myself. I could talk with a real person who just walked me through everything. Cool, that's awesome and a great way to sustain my loyalty and my happiness with the purchase that I just made. All right, so step 3 of all of this is to actually look at the information, right? And that information is going to come through reporting. Reporting information is going to take the data, and it's usually going to pull it into patterns and trends. So typically when we're looking at any type of reporting, it's going to be analytics reporting, whether that's Google Analytics, which is a web analytics tool, or it's the analytics you get from your Facebook page. But you're not just typically looking at raw data and numbers. You're looking at trends and patterns. Like when you look at Facebook Insights, you'll see a cool graph of what, this day you had more engagement, or when you look at a single post, you'll see that, you're either spikes in engagement or in comments and sharing. So that's the patterns and trends that we're looking at. So Google Analytics for you is a web analytics tool that's free for you to tie to your website, and that is collecting all of your website visitors' behavior. So it's collecting data, but it's putting it into reports and in an analytics framework so that you can make sense of the information. But it is a lot of information. So we're going to look at a couple of examples of reports right now. They're going to hurt your eyeballs because it's all these tiny numbers and big and columns and rows, and you're like, ah. But it's to give you an example of all the information that you can get from Google Analytics. But you don't have to look at all of it. You don't have to take all that information. You could be looking for one specific thing in this massive report, as long as you know what it is you're looking for. And that's where those questions are really important to understand. What am I asking of this data? What was the conversion rate from mobile visitors? Because that's important to me, because I know that we have a better conversion rate with mobile visitors. What was my conversion rate with mobile visitors within this time period from this particular ad for this particular campaign? When you know that's what you're looking for, you just look at that and don't worry about everything else. Now, when it comes to looking at your data and your reports in a more holistic way, then you might either within your organization, or you might hire somebody to do this for you. They might be looking at everything, right? Looking at all the patterns and trends, looking at all the data, looking and making some suggestions for you on business practices, your marketing as a whole. But let's start small. Let's start by looking at some specific things that we're asking of the data, rather than getting overwhelmed by trying to look at all of it. So when it comes to getting started with Google Analytics, if you aren't already, you go to google.com/analytics. You tie it to your website through some code snippets. So basically, it's a little bit of code that's added to every page of your website that you want to have analyzed. If you don't do that, meaning you're not the your own website developer or manager, then you just give it to them and they add it to the pages of your site that you're going to have analyzed. Once you've done that, you can look at a variety of insights. And these are the 5 categories of insights that you can look at through Google Analytics. You can look at what's happening in real time, like what is happening right now. Tracy and Danny actually used the real-time reporting whenever they did a media appearance. Because then they knew they were going to get those spikes, and they wanted to see where the traffic was coming from, which pages they were going to, where they went once they landed on their site. Did they convert? So they were looking at real-time reports a lot because of the fact that they had been on Shark Tank. But they might be appropriate for you based on any type of marketing campaign. Maybe you just released a video series, or you created an Instagram story that drove people to a specific page of your website. You want to see, did people go when you will release that? Instagram stories, for those of you who don't know, are 24 hours live. So if someone's going to go to your site, it's going to be then, within that 24-hour period, at least from that particular campaign. So you might look at real-time insights to see what was the impact of my Instagram story during that 24-hour period. There are other categories in here. You can look at conversions data. So, what was your rate of conversion? Or where did people convert most from, as far as where they came from? All of that can be looked at. You can look at audience data. That anything that Google has collected, that's going to be then mapped up with the people that visit your website. So matched up, and then be able to tell you that we have the most website visits from this age category, 35 to 44 or 25 to 34. It's all age ranges when it comes to that data. Because Google doesn't know specifics about people that use Google, they only know information that you either give or information based on your behavior, meaning that you use Google in a specific language, so then therefore they know what language you speak. That information is going to come to you as audience data. Then you've got acquisition data, meaning where did you acquire this visit from? Did it come from a direct search, someone typed your brand name into Google, or did it come from an indirect search where they just put in organic ice cream and then your site popped up and then they went to your website? That would be an indirect search. Or did it come from a referral source like Facebook or from another website like the New York Times or wherever? So whatever the source of the traffic to your site will all come through this acquisition data. The last category of data is behavioral data. So this is what then did they do once they were on your site? What pages did they go to? Did they bounce off immediately, and when? How much time did they spend on specific pages? You can look at that kind of information as well. So here's where we're going to start to look at some actual reports. Like I said, may hurt your eyeballs, but look at these and understand that this is us getting information based on some questions that we have. So Tracy and Danny used these real-time reports to look at what was happening right now when they had a media appearance. And they could just see, right now, we've got 152 active users on our site. Great. That's an increase over, maybe it's a 200% increase over what you normally have at any other given time. So you're comparing data always to other things, right? Not just the questions you're asking of it, but other times when I don't do a marketing campaign versus when I just have sent out this marketing campaign, or when I've done this media appearance versus when I'm not just gotten off of a radio show, right? So we're always looking and comparing, contrasting things. So that's an example of a real-time report. It's showing things like the amount of active users on the site, desktop versus mobile. So we've got 83% of folks are on your website from a desktop computer versus 17% from a mobile device. So it's giving you information on the source, the device, the amount of users, the top referral sites, the social media traffic, all of this information within these reports. The conversions data, thinking and asking yourself the question, is our website successful? Because once they do go to your site, that's just job one, right? Job one, cool. They clicked on the ad or they clicked on the link in the social post. They got to the site. Now what? Did they convert? Not everybody's going to convert. This is why you don't have 100% conversion rates. And that would be crazy if you did. Conversion rates seem low because everybody's at different stages of the customer journey. Some people are going to go to your site and all they're doing there is just checking you out, seeing what you offer, seeing what you cost, getting some information, getting maybe your address so they can go visit you. They're getting all sorts of different information based on wherever they're at along that customer journey. But if they are at that stage of the customer journey where they're ready to buy, then we're going to get some conversions, hopefully, if it's set up in the way that will make it easy for them to get those, and you're going to measure that. How many conversions did you drive? So you can look at your, the actual rate of your e-commerce conversions, the number of transactions, revenue that came from it, which the source versus medium of where they came from. This kind of information is vital in understanding where we have our best chance of converting, so that you can start to then put the pieces together like, okay, we know that we're getting our highest conversion rate from people within this age range who use mobile devices, who do a direct search of our business, who then go to these pages on our website. If you know by piecing all of the data together that that's where you actually get your best return on investment, your highest rate of conversion, then you're going to do everything you can to increase what you're doing at all of those different stages on all of those pages, making sure that your SEO is super tight so that you can get more direct traffic to your site. It's telling you things at every stage of the game. Another example, or moving on to another example, taking a look at audience data. Audience data is going to tell you whether or not the people that come to your website are matching the people you think. As I mentioned earlier, Tracy and Danny thought that their highest converting demographic was the 35 to 44-year-old female demographic. And they actually found out by looking at their data, it's not. It's actually the 25 to 34-year-old female, 25 to 34-year-old male users are converting the most. So that gut instinct that they had, they're like, ooh, wow, okay, we were off. We need to make some changes then in our marketing. If you know that you're getting better conversion from a male audience versus a female audience, that could change then the types of ads you do, the type of content you create, even the places that you connect to that audience in. When it comes to acquisition data, this is one of the more eye-hurting reports because there's a lot of information here, but I want you to just home in for a moment on this e-commerce conversion rate column. You could simply be looking at that. Which of the search queries is leading to the highest conversion? The search query that gets the highest conversion in this report, when they looked it up, was the actual name of their business, Wicked Good Cupcakes. Makes sense. Or could make sense, right? Maybe it isn't for your business. Maybe you get the highest rate of conversion based on cupcakes in a jar, which is actually really high for them also. When you look at cupcakes in a jar, 20% conversion rate, so pretty high too. So they're going to look at which of these search queries, so the things that people type into Google in order to, that then led to a visit to their website, look at which ones are getting the highest conversion so that they can do more things that use those search phrases, create more content that uses that. So if they know they get the highest conversion from their actual business name, then they need to make sure when they're creating content, they use their business name everywhere, right? Lastly, let's look at a behavioral flow report, looking at where people go once they visit a page. So they landed on your website on one page, but then where do they go from there? So people don't always get to your website and often don't get to your website just by landing on your homepage. They may have clicked a link in a search and then landed on your services page or your About Us page or your blog. Where did they go from there? So the behavioral reports will show that flow depending on what it is you want to look at specifically. So in this report, you're looking at the starting page, which one has the highest amount of sessions and drop-offs, and then where they go from here. I know this may look a little confusing right now at first glance, but when you know what you're looking for, these reports start to make a lot more sense. And like I said earlier, if you are a reluctant marketer, or you're somebody who's forced to do marketing but you don't want to, you can always hire out services like this. But do not forget that without measuring, you are not marketing, right? Without measuring, you are not marketing, which means this is a vital element of all of this, not only doing the best for your marketing, but doing the best for your business. By making sure that you're using your money and your investments most wisely in your marketing to know what's doing and working the best, all of that needs to be looked at in order to then know what's working and what's not. So where to go from here? Make sure that you understand marketing goals and outlining goals ahead of time so that you know what you can measure against. Your goals are there as the beacon at which you're seeking, right? We want to go towards this goal, and that goal needs to be a SMART goal, right? Remember what SMART stands for? You're going to get the slides, so you can review this on your own. But you need to make sure that it is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time sensitive. Create SMART goals so you can measure against those and you know what to look for in your data, rather than just looking at all the data and go, okay, we wanted to increase revenue, did we? I don't know, there's so much data here. I can't see it, I can't quite tell. But when you have a SMART goal set up, then you have specific things that you're gonna be looking for, and the data makes a lot more sense. Make sure you're asking questions at the right stages of the customer journey, because everybody's gonna be at a different stage. There's going to be a certain segment of your population that's at that beginning brand awareness stage. There's going to be certain people that are in the consideration phase, certain people that are ready to make a purchase, and then certain people that are your customers who you want to sustain loyalty and then hopefully encourage advocacy through. So all of those things, all of these stages matter, knowing which stages people are at, and then marketing to every one of these stages is really important. And asking the right questions then, are people engaging with us in the right places and in the right ways? You also need to choose the right tools to use. Like I said, a lot of the digital marketing, it's already built in, so you just use that. But then you might want to add additional third-party tools onto digital marketing platforms that you're using that give you even more information and insight. When it comes to your website, there's no analytics just built into your site when you build a site, so you have to get a web analytics platform. I'm partial to Google Analytics because it's free and highly powerful. Sometimes free, you know, you get what people say, you get what you pay for with free, but when it comes to Google Analytics, you get a lot more than maybe you even bargained for. It's a ton of information that will keep you busy for a long time. And then make sure that you're actually taking action on what you're measuring. Don't just look at it and go, okay, cool. Report it up to somebody and go, okay, here's those numbers you were looking for. The business needs to take action. The business needs to make changes based on what you are seeing in the data in order to actually grow from this information. Covered a lot, packed in. Did anyone feel overwhelmed? A little bit? But did you all feel like you learned something that you can take away from this? How many of you learned at least 1 to 3 things that you're gonna do when you leave this room that you can apply? Okay, awesome. Great. Well, I'm going to leave you with some resources and information. You can go to the Grow with Google website. There's more training tools, more resources and materials to dive deeper into this. And guess what? If it's not on the Grow with Google site, just Google it. You will find a deep well of information on everything I talked about today, just in the search engine that is Google. I want to thank you all so much for your time and attention. I'm going to turn it back over to Deirdre, who's going to share a little bit more about what's coming up, and they're also going to send the slides to you all. So thank you all so much.
Just really quickly, I just want to, does anybody have any questions, quick questions for Carissa while she's here? Okay. We're a little over time, so we got to keep it short, but I do want to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions.
I'm fine.
Are you sure?
I think for the recording, they need the mic, yeah.
So you talked about the copywriting, right? And so when we're looking at analytics, we're provided with age and female or whatever. Is this something that we want to include when they enter the website and they sign to agree and to the terms of visiting the website? Is this something that we include, or?
So are you saying, do you need to let people know that you're collecting information about them? Okay, so you don't need to let people know that that's being, so this information is coming from Google and from their use of Google and their use of Facebook or their use of any of the digital sites. You are looking at that information and their behavior on your website, definitely. It's your choice. I mean, most people will have a cookie statement like we are, you have to, and you can either accept it or decline it, and a cookie statement will be like, we are collecting your visit information here. And that's a standard thing on the website. But to explicitly lay out, or we're going to be looking at where you're coming from and what you do on our website and da-da-da, you don't need to unless you have some sort of ethical reason to do that, but most people know when they're online, we are, there's a bit more transparency. Unless and the way to protect yourself there is if you want to use an incognito browser when you're online, it's not going to collect data on you. So that's an option that we all have if you want to. And you could let people know if anyone ever had a concern about that. You're just like, oh, we just use an incognito browser and we won't collect any data on you. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yes.
If you have more than one website, is it easy to do a Google Analytics for, let's say, 2 websites?
You would need Google Analytics for both sites. So you would have your separate code snippets for each of your pages, and then you'd have 2 different accounts essentially.
So I just have 2 Google accounts.
Mm-hmm.
With your email. Okay.
Right. You're welcome.
Carissa, I just want to make an observation. Last year you did this and taken just this presentation. I'm Robert and work for the state of Washington, the Employment Services. I sat with an employer and with this presentation, the employer was able to go right into the search, what you're saying. She found out, she was a caterer, and found out 80% of the people who did an initial search said cheap catering. So she's able to build that into her, cheap catering.
Yeah.
So she put that in her profile. Second, she did like a little bit of predictive analytics where she could see 4th of July was a hot time, graduation a hot time, and she built that in there. And then she knew that the people who were doing smartphones, she put a button on there, because you can link either to like a URL, whatever, but they linked it to an SMS. And the pre-message was, as soon as they clicked the button, it went right to the phone, because people don't respond today to emails, they respond to the text. So she built a text reply that preloaded with their, all they had to do is hit the button, went right back, said, I'm interested in buying, I have a few questions. It went right to them at that second because they were a hot buyer.
Yeah.
So this was based right off of this,
That's
the last
awesome.
presentation, so amazing.
Great. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm actually doing another presentation next week, same day, but in DuPont. And so if that's in anyone's driving distance, it will be a different presentation than this, talking more about how search works. So we'll be talking about SEO and SEM, and SEM is the world of paid advertising. Search engine marketing is what that stands for. So we'll be talking about SEO, SEM, and Google Business Profiles. That's also a free workshop next week. If anybody wants to go and wants information, come see me after.
Any other questions? All right, we'll take you as the last question. Here you go.
Thank you. Maybe this would be better to ask, can I just email you a question if it's...
Sure.
Would you be willing to? Okay.
Absolutely.
But generally, I want to ask, what if you, the nature of your business means that you can't buy it online? I mean, how do you track conversions?
So the conversion would be any type of conversion. I should have made that more clear earlier, that a conversion doesn't need to be a purchase. It could be a next step in the funnel. So it could be clicking for a consultation or making a phone appointment. It could be signing up for an email list. So you can actually set up goals within Google Analytics that match what is considered a conversion for you. So you set your own goals up as to what counts as a conversion, and it can be multiple things, and all of that can be things that are considered micro conversions, like they made a call or they signed up for a demo, or a macro conversion like an actual purchase.
All right, well, I just want to give a thank you to Carissa for coming out.
My pleasure.
And thank you guys for coming out as well.
Yay.
And the one thing I'm going to ask from you guys, if you're willing, we're going to send out a survey for this workshop. So if you feel inclined, please fill out the survey, because we do put on multiple workshops throughout the year. So we want to know how our workshops are performing, what you're interested in. So when you see that link in your email, please fill out the survey. And then also, Will and myself, as I said, we work for the Community and Economic Development Department. So if any of you are interested in coming to talk to us in person to talk more about what resources we have at the city, please feel free to contact us, because we can do over the phone or in-person meetings to talk about things like that. So thank you all for coming.